Hey everybody, this is a clip from my monthly Ask Me Anything live stream that I do over on my Patreon. If you're not familiar, every first Wednesday of the month I do an Ask Me Anything live stream where I get to talk to all of my patrons. It's available for both $5 and $10 tiers. However, questions are only available, like if you want to ask a question, it's only available for the $10 tiers. And in this clip, someone asked me about Draconic Charts as well as the terms and the Decans in astrology. So I talk a little bit about that. And if you are interested in this kind of content, go ahead and check out over my Patreon. It helps support me. It supports the channel. And anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this clip. Hey Cam, have you ever used Decans and or Egyptian terms to further define a planet's position or significance? Just wondering about your general experience if it exists. I'm also, oh yeah, these are two separate questions. I'm also wondering about your experiences with interpreting Draconic charts. Would you be able to open up my birth chart and go through any basic information like my sun, moon would be in Scorpio? So let me answer that one really quickly. And I kind of don't care if someone has studied Draconic charts their whole life and they have all this meaning. They're kind of bullshit. It has no presence in any kind of reality. And you can maybe even argue that with the tropical astrology. Like that could be an argument. But how Draconic charts, if you don't even know what they are, they're on, you can look up like on astro.com. They give you an option if you want like the Fagan Bradley sidereal or you want tropical or Draconic. The Draconic chart puts wherever your north node is at like 0 Aries. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. And so all of your planets, they're in the same positions with one another. For example, like I have Mars and Venus together. So my Draconic chart, Mars and Venus are both still the same degrees apart, but they're in a completely different zodiac sign. And I believe that they're still in the same spot of the sky. But Draconic charts, and from what I understood, I think I heard this from Jen Zart. I could be wrong, but I overheard this from somebody at an astro conference that Draconic charts come from a misinterpretation of text, which happens a lot. But essentially a Draconic chart, like wherever your north node is, that is 0 Aries now. And then that sets up the zodiac. So for example, my north node is at 11 Libra. So then it would turn my north node at 0 Aries, which would make like my moon at like 13. Yeah, I think 13 Aries. It's in my opinion, it's a bunch of bullshit. Like we can't even agree between sidereal and tropical. And I think this is where it just loses all meaning and significance because like there's an actual argument between tropical and sidereal. But when you went outside of the time of your birth, like at the time that I was born, Sagittarius was the sign rising on the eastern horizon. Not, what would that be? Not Gemini. It just wasn't happening. So that's just not what was there. Now we can argue whether it was, because again, in tropical, I'm 29 Sag rising. And in sidereal, I would be, I think like 8 degrees Capricorn rising or something like that. So we can argue the specifics, and that's like deals with precession, but there's no logic underneath Draconic. So there's that. Second question is, have you ever used Decans and or Egyptian terms to further define a planet's position or significance? I really like this question because I just started reading Valens. Here, let me grab it real quick. This is a great question because I just started picking up Valens, this book. And Valens has been so far one of the first texts that I've read that actually goes into the meaning of some of the terms. I didn't use Decans that often for a while, and it was simply because my knowledge of them wasn't fully there. I wasn't like as knowledgeable about it to where I could apply it in all situations. And honestly, in my work, it doesn't come up enough because a lot of my work is like it's not me going super duper deep into someone's birth chart and like the specifics. It's like, hey, what's going on for you this year? What's the timing? How do we go around that kind of stuff? It's much more personal development oriented. So I don't always get to. However, I have used terms a lot in my practice. Just wondering your general experience if it exists. Yeah, I don't get to do it that much with client work. I total like I and in Decans I have a little bit more. Well, and the thing is with terms, my bad. With Decans, and if you're not familiar with Decans, Decans are a way of dividing the zodiac by 3. So the first 10 degrees are ruled by a planet, the second 10 degrees are ruled by another, and the third 10 degrees are ruled by another. Terms go even smaller, and it's like very specific amounts of the zodiac sign are ruled by specific planets. Like I think it's like Jupiter rules the first 12 degrees of Sag, and then Venus rules the next 6, and then I think it's like Mercury rules the next 4 or something like that. Yeah, SJ does a lot. And I really like terms. Now, there's also a big argument of what terms, like, do you use the Egyptian terms? Do you use Chaldean terms? Do you use the Ptolemaic terms? I use Egyptian terms. Everyone that I work with uses Egyptian terms. You can't sit with us. But I like the Egyptian terms. And I really like the reasoning is like most people use them and they fucking work. And there's also like with Chaldean terms and Ptolemaic terms, there's like this rhyme and reason versus Egyptian terms are very random. Which doesn't make sense, but also the Egyptians spent a lot of time focusing on like the Egyptian zodiac was like came out of terms. Like the Egyptian zodiac was, I believe, 36. Yeah, like Decans come from the Egyptian zodiac because it was like 36 and it went off stars, and that's what a lot more of the terms deal with. So I use the Egyptian terms. I don't remember. That's a wow. If this was Astrology Jeopardy, what William Lilly uses what terms? I fucking don't remember. I have failed you. I should know that. But yeah, to further define a planet's position or significance, I think that's the real heart of the question because, for one, I really use terms and Decans as secondary dignity schemes. So it's like, okay, for example, let's say you have Jupiter in Leo. Okay, well, Jupiter has a little bit of dignity in Leo, right? It's a triplicity lord. Is it its own terms? If it's in its own decan, because when you read decans in terms, if you want to know what decan in terms means, essentially is if you've got a planet in a sign that doesn't rule. So let's say Jupiter in Leo, just to make it easy. That means that Jupiter doesn't have dignity there. But if a planet is in its own terms, or if it's in its own decan, every text that I've read about this literally says the same thing. It's as if it's in its own sign. So let's say you have, for example, I have Jupiter in Capricorn, right? I have a fallen Jupiter, but I have Jupiter in its own terms and its own decan. And so I have a pretty, thank God, I have Jupiter in its own terms and decan. But essentially, it's a way to dignify the planet, and it's as if it can operate. And in my opinion, it's kind of like a hack. Like, I'm supposed to have this detriment Jupiter, or this fallen Jupiter, but in reality, Jupiter still has access to its own resources. Yeah, another problem I have is I have Jupiter squaring the nodes and Saturn, so there's a little bit of tension there. But I've always thought planets at the very end of degrees of a sign are in malefic terms. I've always thought planets at the very end degrees of a sign are in malefic terms and would be a little more intense. Yes, I would agree with that. But again, I mainly use terms and decans as a dignity scheme. Now, when you really want to go deep, but this is where, like with client work, it's hard to go that deep with people because often they just haven't had that reflection. Like when I talk to other astrologers and they know their chart, they know their life, they've done all the work, it's way easier to have those conversations. Versus like with clients, even clients I've been going to for years or that have been coming to me for years, it's not that simple. So I think it's much more handy on people's own terms. And if they want to go to an astrologer, they can for that. But, yeah, the last degrees are always ended by a malefic. And like, yeah, when you have a planet in like Mars or Saturn's terms, like in the way that, let me also bring it to you this way. This is the other way I use them. Well, again, first off, it's a dignity scheme. Number one. Number two, how terms in decan works is, okay, let's say, for example, I have Mars in Gemini. Mars has a job to do. That is confront, act, fight, defend. And it's in Gemini. So it has the tools of Gemini. It has information, it has communication, it has data and other people. Those are the tools that my Mars has to operate. Now, the Decan, the face that it is operating in, what face is my... I also don't ever remember them because this is just so much to remember, but let me pull up my chart. So face is another term for Decan, and Decan, all my synastry charts with every person ever. There we go. So let's look at my Mars. So I have Mars in the terms of Saturn and the face of the sun. Hold on. I've got Valens right here. I need to look at this because I'm pretty sure there's a way to do this with Astro Gold. Let's look at Gemini. The first 6 degrees of Gemini belong to Mercury, temperate with fine weather, intelligent, versatile, skilled, active, poetic, prolific. The next 6 degrees belong to Jupiter, so up to 12 degrees Gemini, competitive, temperate, with fine weather, prolific, luxuriant, beneficent. The third term, so from 12 to 17 degrees, belongs to Venus, blossoming, artistic, addicted to plays and mimes, poetic, a contest winner, popular, cheerful, prolific. I have Venus in her own terms in Gemini. So that's 6, 12, 17. 17 plus 7 is 24. Belong to Mars. The last 6 belong to Saturn. Yeah. So this is why I need to figure out what does anyone have a free site to do this? I believe you can do this on astro.com. You just do extended chart selection. So this makes me want to know though, calculations, Egyptian term type, Fedaria type, progression, part of fortune. I got to look back at this. Anyway, the face is essentially, I was looking at terms, not face. Duh. I'm so dumb. I'm retarded. I was just reading what he also has the face in here. Anyway, let's just say it's the sun for the sake of ease. The face that planet is in, the way I like to look at it is that is the manager. My Mars has to operate in terms of the sun. My sun's in Leo. I have to do things like I've talked to my girlfriend about this of like, if I do things that are unintegral or that like harm people, I get the fucking karma instantaneously. And it's like my Mars has to do things in the sun's face. Like, okay, are you doing this honorably? Are you doing this, from ego? Are you doing this from willpower? Are you doing this authentically, right? Because I'm at Leo sun. But the terms are Saturn. Like, the sun is my witness, and Saturn is setting the terms. Saturn is saying, okay, you want to be Mars in Gemini? Awesome. I'm going to have the sun be your witness to this, and you have to do it on my terms, which is hard work, discipline. I have to have time. I have to have patience. I can't just be Mars and Gemini and yell at everybody. I have to be the mature one. I have to be the disciplined one. And so that's the way that I read it. Like face is kind of like the person who's witnessing you and the person who's watching over you do that job. And the terms are the planets that sets the condition for that promise to happen. Right? Does that make sense? I know this is a lot. This is a really deep dive on this, honestly. And I've never actually talked about this with you guys. So I know that's a lot. Let me read some of these comments real quick. What are you doing? Oh, sorry. Give me a second. So, let's read some of these comments. Yeah, SJ uses a lot, like, for instance, Venus is in fall Virgo, but then can also be in the Decan or something like that. Yeah, like as a dignity scheme. William Lilly uses what terms? I don't know. Do you bring up some SMS term if it's a situation like yours where you have a good placement because of terms despite the detriment? Liz, I don't know what you're saying there. Do terms and decans affect the angles then? Yeah, because that's how things are working. But I just you want to take a lot of this, like I would look at the ruler of the midheaven first, of course, and then dive into detail there. So yes, terms and decans will affect the angles. Mars is also your 5th ruler at night. Does anyone have free sites to do this? I have Mars and Aries in the 5th house. I'm also Sag rising. So yes, Mars was my 5th and 12th houses. Every time I look into this, I get lost. Yeah. This frames it well. Good. Face equals decal, right? Face and Decan are the same. Terms are different. Okay. Gosh, we're only an hour into this, and I've got so many more questions.